Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
It's good to know that black people were the originators of civilizations as we know it. It's good to know that there were women who were queens and rulers in their time. It's good to know that we contributed to astrology and medicine and all these things. But how do we translate this information to make it meaningful to us today? How does this information put food in the stomachs of our hungry children? How does this information stop black on black crime? How does this information affect our scholars some of our scholars who have separated themselves into a separate intelligentsia elite? How does this eradicate sexism and classism that is rampant among our people and to me is bedfellows, bed partners of racism? What do we do? How do we take this information that we get here today and make it work, make it more meaningful to us as a people? Because it is my feeling that until we can recognize these problems and effectively deal with it, we will never unify as a people and we will never really make any meaningful progress.
I take that as a statement because I think I addressed several of those issues in the presentation. I guess the only thing I can add to that is to say that one of the problems, I believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it is through knowledge that change takes place. That by knowing these things, this is the key. But the problem is that we've been trained to study and to hear in a dual mind. So we hear with our ears and our brains and not with our hearts. So therefore the knowledge does not transform us. It's not redemptive in the sense that George James talks about. So we have brilliant scholars who can't even correct their own behavior. And they have brilliant understanding, listen, and they can't control their own dope habits, their liquor habits, their womanizing habits, or their menizing habits. They can't control their own needs. I mean, they can't control their own passions, which is the first step to self-knowledge. So the point is that you can have expansive knowledge, rational knowledge, but it is not, if it is not transform the soul, the will, the intent, the conscience of the person, then you have absolutely nothing. The Quran describes it as a donkey with tomes of books on its back. That you're walking around burdened down with encyclopedic knowledge that has nothing to do with your inner state. So the reason that we've got this understanding, and I do believe, don't let nobody fool you. This is the door. This is the key. This is the way. The problem is, what I don't know, how do you unlock the heart so that people can hear not only with their brains, but with their hearts? And once that occurs, the power of this knowledge was so great in ancient times that it could take the very flesh of people and transform that flesh. It could take crops and make the crops stand. It could transform a whole society. So I have no doubt it can be done again.
The Arabian name for Egypt was Kemet, meaning the Black Land. Alchemy was originally known as Alchemet, or from the Black Land. It was a magical practice that was so carefully guarded that its steps were shrouded in allegory and riddle. It was communicated through metaphors about transformation, or more specifically, transmutation. It described the alchemist's quest to collect the materia prima and to subject it to a series of exacting purification processes. If performed correctly and with great attentiveness on the part of the alchemist, the materia prima would become transmuted to a higher state.
Yes, well, the word alchemy, there's arguments over this, there's arguments over everything, actually. But alchemy probably derives, it's an Arabic word, with al-Khamit. The Egyptians called their own country Kemet, the Black Land. And so alchemy becomes the art of the Black Land. And it is, I think, a direct or an indirect transmission of an Egyptian doctrine. The mystery schools had more or less died out, you could say. Anyway, there certainly wasn't a whole society devoted to developing a caste of initiated priests, but alchemy was a way of doing it on your own, and it was, even if frowned upon by the church, by the formal institutionalized church, it was permitted because they all thought they'd get gold out of it. But the gold, of course, that the alchemist produced may or may not have been real gold, since we now know that it is in fact possible to transmute elements from one to another. We do that with our atom bombs, but that's hardly gold. And so this practice was permitted by the church, and Schwaller himself, of course, was an alchemist, and he talks about those who are simply interested in the physical process and hope to produce gold, and those who understand that the actual production of gold, if it is indeed possible, I think it is, actually. I think there are enough accounts of the alchemists that are not folderol and that are eyewitness, you might say, and yes, you can't test the witnesses anymore, but I think it's in principle possible that they actually succeeded in what they were doing. But the production of the gold was like passing a test. I mean, that told you that you'd acquired the Philosopher's Stone and you had reached a certain level of internal development.
The successful result of the alchemical process was the creation of the Philosopher's Stone.